This evening is going to be a really busy evening. Ben is going to go ahead and cut all the hay on our property. So we're going to be cutting about roughly 30 acres of hay, and this time we're actually doing it complete opposite of last year because we really messed up last year. So we square baled all of our hay last year and we started selling it immediately, and we really messed up by doing that because we ourselves actually ran out of hay. But thankfully we had 5 bales left over at his dad's farm that we had from our cows being over there, so we had to go get those and haul them over here, and thankfully we did not run out. But you never want to be in that situation. So what we've decided to do is, one of our friends has a roll baler, so we're actually going to roll bale all of our first cutting just because it's always the thickest and best hay that you'll get. So our goal is to get 40 to 45 roll bales. Once we get 40 to 45 roll bales of hay, then we'll be good for our cows and our animals this winter, and then we'll sell extra. So our second, and if we get a third cutting of hay, then all of that will be square baled, just because you make more money off of square bales than you do round bales. And then while he's doing that, I'm actually gonna go plant the garden. So I went in and got my seeds. Hopefully you can hear me. But I went in and got my seeds. And these plants, so we have several different kinds of tomato plants. We have onions, watermelon, we have bean, cucumber, and zucchini seeds. But I'm already having a hard time keeping the chickens out, so I'm gonna have to figure that out because they're wanting to eat my plants. No, go away. But I'm gonna work on getting it all in the ground, and we're gonna try and figure out how to keep the chickens out because they are free range, and it's part of having free range chickens that you have to keep them out of your garden because they will eat. I just now finished planting the garden, and as you can see, I left the seed packs there. I'll eventually pick them up once they start to sprout, just so I know exactly where I planted because it's kind of hard to tell right now. But all of this row halfway is cucumbers, the other half is zucchini. There's actually nothing in this row right here. There's 2 rows of green beans. We planted white half runners, that way we wouldn't have to trellis or anything. It's just a bush bean. It just makes things a little bit easier just because I know we're not going to have tons of time to dedicate to this garden, but we at least want to plant some stuff. Right here is green onions, and then all of this is tomatoes. We still have like a small gap right there, and in this far row right here, I want to eventually plant cabbage. I already have the plants. We had them for probably about a month now, but whenever we had them, they weren't planted yet, and the rabbits ate them, so we're waiting on them to grow back. And then as you can see, the netting didn't work all the way, so we're gonna have to put a cattle panel right there just to try and keep the chickens out because they are driving me nuts. They ate, I forgot to say that I planted watermelon. There's watermelon right here somewhere. There's like 3 plants, and oh, right there they are. But it ate, one of the chickens ate one of the watermelons already, so we have got to do something to keep them out, or else they're gonna eat everything that we have. So hopefully maybe this netting will work. Ben's been out here cutting hay. He's got a lot cut so far, but we still have a lot to go. We still have this field right here. There's another field on the other side of all this, and we still have the whole back side of the farm. So we're hoping we can get it all cut this evening. And I just got the garden planted. He's working on cutting hay. He can only cut until about 8:30 or 9 because that's when the dew starts to fall, and then it's just too wet to cut. But once we get the hay cut, it'll lay for a full day, and then we will ted it, and then it'll lay for a day, and then we'll go back and rake it and bale it. It ended up getting too late last night and it was too dark to film, but we did get the blackberry starts planted. We actually got them from our friend's bush. She has like a whole entire like trellis, so these were this year's starts. She gave me 10, but I saved 3 for my mom. I'm gonna take to her, and then I planted 7 up here in the corner. They won't produce any fruit this year. If they do, it'd be something super small, but we planted them just because they're thornless, and also we have tons of blackberries this year, like on the property, like right there's one, but they're wild and they're super small compared to these. These are massive berries whenever they come on, and they're like full grown. So I love the fact that they are thornless, and also that they're in one contained spot that we can like weed eat around, because fun fact, whenever I was 15, I actually got bit by a copperhead whenever I was picking blackberries. So I actually hate picking blackberries, but I love them and I love to can them and stuff. So I know over on Instagram I got a lot of questions asking why we planted blackberries whenever they grow wild. So there's a few reasons, just because they're thornless and just because you can keep them well maintained this way, and they are way bigger than wild. I worked on putting compost on pretty much all the plants around the farm, but this tree right here, it's a magnolia tree, and the cows were scratching on it and broke it over. So it needs to grow back up, because there's one right there and it needs to grow that tall, and that way they match. That's why we bought them. So I put compost on this one hoping it would help it grow. So far this fence, it's not even hooked up to electric. So far it is doing an awesome job at keeping out the chickens and the groundhogs, because everything is still alive. And I'm actually running out of room, so these are actually my rows of where like we would walk and we need to weed, because like here's a row and then like right here's a row. So I just had these pots left over from those blackberry starts, so I planted cabbage in these, and possibly whenever they get bigger I can like transplant them to the ground. It just kind of depends on when rabbits leave them alone, because usually once they get mature enough, rabbits won't bother them. And then down there in the far corner I did the same thing. That is a small water trough, and there is 5 cabbage plants in it. So these are doing great also, but like I said, maybe whenever they get a little bit bigger we can transplant them. But I just had this little tiny corner in the garden, and I think I actually covered up 1 or 2 of my cucumber seeds, but it'll be okay. I just needed to get these cabbage plants planted. And we actually have a whole nother garden section right there, but we are not planting in it just because I don't have another net to put around, and I know that if I was to put something out and it wasn't in a net, it would get eaten. So we're just gonna wait, and whenever this garden gets kind of mature, then I will start a later garden per se, probably in about a month or so, and start planting in this garden. And also it makes the canning a little bit easier, so that everything is not ready at the same exact time, so that you have like a little bit of a later crop. We're trying to keep our garden like small, but also like make sure that we have enough for us to eat this year. We know that we don't have tons of time to dedicate to the garden just because we have so much going on, but we are hoping for a prosperous garden and a good canning season.